Welcome to The Author Next Door, where hosts Angela Haas and Cassie Newell chat about the wild world of writing and publishing. Join them for weekly episodes and special monthly guests. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of The Author Next Door. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Cassie Newell. And this month, we've been talking about networking, and specifically networking in person and conference survival tips. Today, we're going to talk about just key learnings and key takeaways from the conference we just attended, which was last week's episode, live from Superstars Writing Seminars. And we just wanted to wrap up that and then also talk about how to survive again at a conference, because there's some things that we even learned this time. I guess I'll start and say I had a great time at Superstars, but even going a second time, I realized you really still have to pace yourself. I'm an extroverted person, but I still got really burned out. Like, even the day after, I thought, I can't talk to anyone. And I didn't plan that in my schedule. Also, it was the Super Bowl, but we had to go to a Super Bowl party, and it probably won't always fall that way. But I just felt really drained. And I think as an extrovert, and I don't know if this is true for you, Cassie, you're more of an ambivert, but I get really energized by being around that many people. But even after, I was so tired because I had burned through a lot of energy. And I did better this time. The first time, I just went to everything. I signed up for everything. I didn't have a break between sessions. I just went because I thought I've got to absorb every single piece of information. And so I was really obliterated after. This time I did better with saying, you know what? I paid for the recordings, which is an option with a lot of these conferences. You can at least get the audio downloads. And since I had paid for things like that, since I knew I was going to have the recordings, I was like, well, I don't have to go to the session. I think I'm going to take an hour, get out of the building. And I live locally, so that was something I could do. But just sort of rest my brain and my voice,
Right.
and apologies to everyone else out there if we both sound a little scratchy. It's just because we went through 5 days of nonstop talking, which
Yeah,
was
my
so
voice
fun.
is definitely
Yeah.
not its prime, so
Yeah.
bear with me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
How did you manage your energy this time?
I
Second
think it's
time for you too.
interesting because, coming from out of town, you do feel the pressure because you've spent the money to go to all the things. And I did find myself going, no, let's prioritize what I really need to know, the things that I could gain more knowledge from versus things I already had knowledge about. So, for example, there was a panel that was 8 o'clock at night, and I was so done because usually the sessions were ending around 5,
Mm-hmm.
the last one at 4. So it ends at 5. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to miss it. I'm here in the hotel. I should go because it's important that I go. And I networked. I had a great time. By the time I did get back to my room, I was done for. But,
Yes.
you just you do have to pace yourself. I think you also have to give yourself some grace around those things too, because you're not going to make every single thing. And a lot of times the hallway conversations
Oh,
are
yeah.
the best conversations and the best networking opportunities. I got to meet with so many people and have lunch with different people and get some really good career feedback on how to manage things and kind of insider tips that people were freely giving to me, which was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a question I have for you, because I think this kind of happened to both of us, but I mean, I don't want to speak for you. I got conflicting advice. The great thing about Superstars is that you can go to career counseling sessions. They're 15 minutes long, and it's just with the super experts of the industry, just no matter what the genre. You can meet with an agent, you can meet with a, best-selling thriller writer. It's kind of up to you. But
Right.
what was interesting is I had someone, and they were all great. When I'm sitting there, I'm just absorbing everything because they are so helpful. But, one person said, I'm not ready for a Kickstarter on one of my books in my series. The other
Yeah.
person was like, I think you should definitely do this Kickstarter.
Right.
Kind of, they're both not wrong or right. It's not like
Yeah.
each one had great points and good advice. But now I'm at this like, well, what's right for me? And I think that's like if you get advice that takes you in two different directions, it's almost like you're not going to lose either way. It's just going to be
Yeah.
like what's right for me and my phase in my career. But how do you feel? Like, how do you handle something like that?
So I had this great conversation while I was there, and the individual, I said to them, it was part of career counseling and just a lunch thing that kept going. And I said, you're always told to follow other authors, comps, mimic what they're doing. And I said, but I'm not really, and
Mm-hmm.
the things we were talking about were definitely outside. And she said, here's the thing. She has a lot more experience than we do. And she was like, here's the thing. We tell that to people because they're brand new. The majority of
Right.
people don't know these things.
Mm-hmm.
So most conferences, you're hitting the majority. She said, however, once you know the rules, then you have the opportunity to break them,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of
Yeah.
tweak them for yourself. And I thought that was just the best advice because it was like, yeah, because it's not completely me breaking them. It's bending. It's bending.
Right.
It's doing a couple of bends, if you will. And in that context, it was just really interesting because right now I'm writing short romance, talking about print, all the different opportunities around that, audio, all the things. And I just thought, interesting. Okay. The things that I thought wouldn't be applicable, she's like, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What are you doing? And it was very eye opening, I have to say, because I think, we try to get in a line to mimic others because we respect them, but there's an opportunity to break it and bend it. Yeah. It's
Yeah, I
exciting.
think that's a really good point. I think and I kind of only when it's right for you to break the rules. But I think that's how some of the most successful authors have reached success is by not necessarily conforming and straying out of their lane. So that's a
Right.
really good point. I think that's a really good takeaway from the conference. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I did a presentation mostly about how to sell in person because I think in person events are important to add to what you're doing online with your sales. One of the most interesting things is because you meet so many people in the hallways and mixers and lunch,
Right.
dinners, coming in and out of sessions, you're standing there and someone's going to ask you, what are your books about or what do you write? And it's interesting how I had to learn to answer that question in a really concise way because
Right.
I've taken all these classes, early on in my career about how to, really get that pitch down to following a template and adding this like hook and then going in here and then closing and that is something I did rehearse. But
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing how, conversations don't flow like that. You're kind of caught off guard and you have to answer on the fly. And I think that's something going into conferences, everyone should practice just getting that answer to that question, what are your books about, down to one sentence. So, as where I
Yeah.
used to flounder a lot and say things like, well, there's a girl, she has a
Right.
neighbor, it's in space. There's a robot, but first she loves cookies. Like you can tell that I'm like the person listening is like, yes, how do I get out of this? So I was like, okay, I need to boil down my pitch to really what am I writing about? And I'm
Right.
writing about older women superheroes. Is that the most glamorous way to say what I'm doing? No. But it usually gets people like, huh, interesting. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
And that's where you then can sprinkle out little details. But on that, I know we get super excited as writers that someone's going to listen to us and wants to know about our book. And so we just go on and on and on. And so you got to
This
know,
happens and then that happens and then
right,
there's
read the
this and
room
that.
and then know when to fold them, if you will. But yeah, if I was to ask you, what are your books about? How do you answer that in the hallway?
Yeah, so my quick answer is I write young adult contemporary fantasy and fairy tale twists along with contemporary romance that are rom-coms.
Yeah, perfect. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Tell me all of it.
Yeah.
But did you get asked that? I mean, were you truly asked that question just in
Oh, yeah.
passing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny because at this conference, I met and saw people that I saw last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so it was like, so what's new? That was always a
Yeah.
couple of times I got asked that. And it was fun to go, right, I'm writing short romance, contemporary romance, 2-hour reads. Like I have this whole series that's launching, da 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 da. I'm leaning into the funny and I'm writing rom-coms. And it was so hilarious because somebody was like, you are funny. That should be fun. And I was like, it is, like it was a lot of fun to kind of catch up with people to see what they had done from last year. Did you find that as well?
Oh, yeah. It was nice to go back to this conference. And I was told at the conference by a well-known author that you need to go to a conference at least 3 times before you say, was this good or not? If you can. I mean, conferences are expensive and there's cost to that. But I think what you get in return can outweigh the costs. But
Yeah.
it was nice going back as my second time that some people did remember me. And I even went up and like, I don't know if you remember me. And they're like, of
Right.
course. And
Exactly.
I was
Me
like,
too.
thank God.
I never make the
Because-
assumption.
Right. I don't either. I don't want to be like, hey, it's me. And they're like,
Have you ever had that happen to you or somebody's like, we went to high school together and you're like, I have no idea. Like,
yes.
it's always helpful when somebody's like, I don't know if you remember me, but my name's Cassie. We met last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always helpful.
Well, and sometimes I'm just so overloaded that I meet so many people, and not that I'm not trying to remember, but I can remember their face, but I'm like, I don't know this person's name. And I'm actually just very honest because I feel like if you flounder and say things like, and try to pretend like you remember them, it's worse. So I'm just always like, I am
Yeah.
so sorry. I remember you, but oh my gosh, I don't remember your name. Hello.
Right.
It's brain damage. And usually I try to make some comment like it's not you, it's me. But that usually diffuses the situation and they're like, yes. And so that keeps the conversation going. But,
Right.
for those afraid to kind of go to a conference and put themselves out there, don't be afraid of those conversations. The other thing is people was so afraid of like asking a bad question in a session and you know what? We get so wrapped up that we're the center of the universe and like someone's going to walk out and be like, someone asked this question and they're going to just remember that. Nah,
Right.
they're already moving on to the next thing. And it's like, it's no big deal, So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. What other kind of key learnings do you think for people maybe going for the first time or haven't been? What do you think?
So I would say because I was flying into Colorado, there's expenses and hotels and all the things when you're not local. For me, the first time I went, I was very attached to pitching. I wanted a specific agent for a young adult fantasy I had written. At the time, it was probably my first serious pitch, and I hadn't done any of the career counseling. This year, I decided I'm doing it all. I'm going to, do the career counseling. I have this idea. I'm going to write this rom-com novel. Let me pitch that, see, get more experience, see where that goes. And I think people don't take advantage of that as they should. Like, because these are experts, and it doesn't mean everything they say is law in terms of career counseling, but it can really set you on the right path. The discussions I was having about bending, versus breaking versus following the line, which I was kind of towing. And she was like, why are you doing that? You've got something
Right.
awesome here. Don't do that. I was like, yeah, you're right. It kind of gives you confidence too to pursue and look into other things. I think, this particular conference gives you built-in networking by career counseling. Like, what other conference does that? Not a lot. And we're talking big names, people who've been in the industry decades. So I think it's invaluable. I mean, that was just a huge takeaway for me, and it paid off. I got asked for a full. That was incredible. And yeah, I'm excited. We'll see where things go.
For
Yeah.
those listeners who might not know just what does it mean when you've been asked for a full? What is a
So when
full?
Yeah. So when you pitch to an agent, typically they'll either pass, maybe give you some pointers, or ask for further information, meaning they want a partial, meaning that's a partial of your manuscript. And they'll tell you up to 30 pages, first 3 chapters, whatever that is. When they ask for a full, that means they want your full manuscript. They are interested in your story. You did well with your pitch. So that's what it means.
That's so exciting. That's so great.
It
Yeah.
is so exciting.
Yeah. Yes. So things like that can happen. And you went in feeling really good, but
Yeah, and I went in as practice. Like, I thought one thing, things had changed with this individual. So at the same time, I was like, I don't know, let's just see how it goes. I was very relaxed. I didn't have it memorized. And I don't think that you have to be honest. And I just had my phone and I kind of communicated and chatted with the individual I was pitching to. I think the first time I went, I was a little bit more uptight about it. I had a printout to leave behind and my card. I mean, I did have my card this time, but I didn't have printout, like all the things. I just kind of went in a little bit more calm, a little bit more secure in the story and what I was doing. And yeah, it was something they were interested in. So it doesn't mean that you'll always land it. I didn't the first time either at all.
Yeah.
I got coached right after, which was fine.
Still valuable.
Still so valuable. Right.
Yeah.
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 What about you? Talk about your career counselings and what
I
you
had
gained.
amazing career counselors. I had Dana Claire, she's the founder of Influence. Yes. She really helped guide me she read my romance blurb and offered some interesting tweaks to it. And for those of you who who are interested in having someone manage your Kickstarter, check out Influence. And maybe we can put some of those links in the show notes that we're going to talk about.
Because they do more than Kickstarter. They also do special editions and some other builds and things. But yeah.
Then I had Mark Cameron, who is a retired law enforcement officer. He lives in Alaska now. He was also a federal marshal. And I went to his talk on writing realistic law enforcement officers or law enforcement characters. And that was so illuminating, but basically helped me think about reviving a thriller series I had outlined. And the only reason I was so wanting to write this thriller series, and I got in the weeds as far as I started doing research, but then didn't understand what kind of research I needed to do, where to look for accurate research, because you can't do this kind of research on ChatGPT. You have to talk to real people in the field. But then I didn't know exactly where to find those people. And Mark Cameron clued me into a lot of groups on Facebook and places where you can ask those questions. So then I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should revive this thriller. And then I had Michael Laron, and he is an amazing urban fantasy writer, but he also has so many great nonfiction books geared towards writers and just on so many topics, including one that I bought that the things that they don't usually tell you. So valuable. All their advice was so valuable, but it almost took me in 3 different directions. So I got advice on the sci-fi, romance, and thriller. And I'm like, okay, which one do I do first?
So
but
put
it's
pressure
exciting
on you.
But I got a lot of validation. And that's sometimes what I needed. Sometimes you just feel like you're on your own island and you're like, am I doing this right? Is this even a thing? And then when you talk to an expert and they're like,
right,
this is so great. It's just the validation I needed to keep me going. So that doesn't happen at every conference, but That's why I like Superstars, because it's small. It is a little more for your ticket, but because you get so much access to people that you wouldn't normally get access to in the industry. So that
Yeah,
was
I
just, it
love
was great.
talking with Cindy Gunderson, and that changed my world on a number of aspects. And I also spoke with Claire. It was really good. Claire, she was giving me the information I needed, in her opinion. It was hard to hear at first. It was like, no, this is my thoughts on this. And I was like, dang, really? Like that's not what I'm hearing, and then she would give me numbers around it. But it was great because I also think there are a lot of people, when you get into this industry and you're trying to learn from them, they're there to sell you a course. They are there
Mm-hmm.
to somewhat educate you, but they're primary there to sell you a course.
Yeah.
So you really have to put on your little doubting Thomas hat every now and then just to make
Right.
sure the path is legit, that you agree with those things. And it takes time. It takes time in this industry to kind of field that, and there's so many great courses, and depending on your personality of how you like to learn and how you like to receive information,
Right.
sometimes it can be really hard to navigate that and some of the discussions and the feedback you get. I mean, you could always go, as Cindy told me, to bend or break something, but you also don't have to do it, guns a-blazing, if you will. Sorry for the Southernism. You can do it one small step at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to throw everything at it to test something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that's what I almost had to, when I came home from the conference, I had to like download all the information, like make notes and just really take time to digest it instead of
Right.
diving right in. And I think that's a great way to do it, but super inspiring. The only other thing I wanted, well, there's a couple other things that I wanted to mention, just quick tips. I can't tell you how many people that I said, "Do you have a card?" because I'm so interested in what you're telling me in the hallway. And they're like, "No, I don't," or "I'm out," or, you know, as authors, we're always here to support other authors.
Right.
Superstars has a bookstore where they sell books. I bought those books because we don't specifically want to just market to other authors, but I think people forget that we're readers too.
Right.
And if I'm talking to you in the hallway and I'm just really loving what you're saying, I want to buy your book and support you.
Right.
So for everyone, it doesn't cost that much to make 50 business cards on Vistaprint or Zazzle or one of those sites. They can be very simple. QR code, or just simply have your website out and your email so people can find you, find your links. That is
Right.
so important. Don't show up to a conference without some contact card that you can slip in your lanyard or have in your backpack. Always have those on you.
Yeah.
Because I gave out a lot of cards, and I'm sure you did too.
I did too. And I was surprised. Last conference, I was trying the dot method. It didn't work very well for me.
That's the dot method, for those who don't know, is where they scan. Isn't it where you have your
Hmm.
contact
On
card
the
in your phone and
back
they
of your
scan it?
phone. Yeah. It
Same.
just
Yeah.
doesn't work the way I wanted it to. And I think also when you're pitching or you're talking to certain people, they want, like I did when I gathered those cards, I go back and look at them.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on the web, I could forget about it. It's kind of interesting. I don't go and scroll through my contacts either because sometimes it allows you to put a contact in that person's phone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't serve me. So this time I did. I had a fun discussion with Angela, my marketing guru here. Asked her, I was like, I do way too many
I was
things.
like,
How do
which Angela? And I was like,
you?
oh, it's me.
How do I put all the things I do on one card? And what does that look like? Am I CM Newell? Am I CK Darling? Am I, all the things? And it was interesting because I was like, okay, well, I'm just Cassie Newell from a business perspective, and I'm going as a business person. If you ask me about my books, I can tell you my pen names. So it was
Yeah.
really interesting because Angela was like, yeah, it should be you. And then have a QR code and make a quick landing page and let them choose what they want to look at. And so they're
Yeah.
just buttons that connect to my websites.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. And I was like, God, this is really brilliant. So
Do you have that card with you? Do you have it? We can show
yeah,
people,
it's like-
maybe. We can show people
Yep.
mine.
Of course,
Just to
it might
give
look
ideas, like
backwards.
how simple. You don't have to
Yeah.
make it real crazy.
Very
you know?
simple. And I just put at the bottom, it was like author, coach, podcaster, because I do all of those things. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't need to list out all the types of things I am as an author, because I have a lot, because I also have nonfiction as well.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd written 20 books. Honestly, I've only written, not, it'll be 10 as of this week in February.
Halfway
But anyway,
there. Yeah.
but
I've got,
it's not a ton.
you can't. So I've got writer, podcaster. I put dog admirer on there because that's
I
my
love
other
it.
career. But that always like when
Gets a
people are like,
laugh.
sigh, another boring business card. And then they're like, what kind of dogs do you have? And I'm like, well,
Let
I
me tell
probably
you all
shouldn't.
about 'em.
You shouldn't open that floodgate with me ever, because I'm like, here's my 72 picture photo album of my animals. And then on the back, I just have my link tree. I'm all link tree right here, and that has all the links to everything. And link tree you can do for free. And again, it just has like little buttons that people can find. You have my address with my publishing company, some social medias, and that's it. And I gave a lot of those out.
Mhm.
Especially to all my career counselors.
Nice. Yes.
The last little tip I have is because I talked to so many people who are not feeling well from the altitude. And I think research your location, because I can say, as a person who's lived in Colorado my whole life, even the altitude, especially because it's in February, Superstars is, and so it's cold and dry. So you're going to be dealing with like those three factors in addition to the elevation. So do some research, because like when you're dealing with elevation, and I'm saying people coming from sea level, we're at about 65, 7,000 feet, depending on where you are in Colorado. And you, especially touching down, getting off a plane, you're going to already start to feel it. You almost need to super hydrate the day before. Bring extra moisturizing lotion with you, or go buy some.
Yeah.
But, and like if you ever come to Arizona, the water isn't super great. So you can't totally drink out of the tap all the time. So you need to plan, like, maybe I'm going to stock up on some bottles of water, or, find a refilling station. What about like someone coming from Colorado to Florida? Like, is there stuff that, like, I know it's more humid. Is there anything
It depends
that,
on where you are in Florida. Not all of
Yeah.
Florida is humid. I
yeah,
would say just because I'm a really seasoned traveler,
right.
layers are your friends.
Yes.
Just pack in layers. Tank a tank top, even though you're going to Colorado. Yes, I took tank tops. You might double up on shirts and then feel like you need a jacket, and then you're in the rooms and you're like, I don't need a jacket. All the things. So layers are important, and they're your best friend, honestly.
And I think being comfortable,
Mhm.
you want to, I dress up a little because I always feel a little more confident, but I still want to feel like comfortable shoes. You don't think
Yeah.
like you do still walk around a fair amount, and especially you need layers. That's such a good point, because I remember in Vegas, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the conference rooms were really hot when I went to the last 20 books to 50K. I feel like I was hot in there.
Yeah.
And then some of these rooms
Freezing.
in the Cheyenne Mountain Resort, the air conditioner was on, and I was cold in there.
Mhm.
So if you can pack a little pack with, like, even when you're at the conference, even if your hotel room is right there, still like a sweater you can throw on or take off, so that if you're hot,
Yeah.
if you're cold, comfortable shoes, just because you're going to absorb the information better if you're not like concentrating on the fact that I'm freezing and I want to get out of here. But just research your location and see what other people say about where the actual conference is. What do you need to know about where you're going?
Right. Absolutely. I also think too, just being prepared to change outfits too helps you sometimes in energizing. So sometimes I would change for dinner. Doesn't mean I'm packing a ton extra. It may just mean I'm throwing on jeans versus
Yes.
slacks,
Yeah.
or I'm just changing my top or what have you. Yeah, it just kind of helps your clothes last a little longer in traveling, but it also helps kind of energize you too. But definitely, be comfortable in your room and
Yeah.
be comfortable while you're traveling, and water, water, water.
Yeah. And even along the lines of like what to pack for dinners and stuff, some people are always shocked when they come to Colorado and it's a very casual
Yeah.
state. Even, the resorts and higher end hotels here, you can still get away with resort casual. I mean, some places may not allow jeans, but if you have dressed up denim, you're totally fine. But I don't know. I've heard in the South, it's people dress up everywhere, you know.
Well, Florida is a flip-flop kind of life, so
Yeah,
me
but
being in
if
shoes
they're
is
in the
like,
Carolinas,
yeah,
my friend who is from South Carolina, she was shocked when she moved here because she dresses up everywhere.
yeah.
It's really
Definitely there's a dress-up
expected.
aspect to it,
Yeah.
you know, but that's also where the Southern belles and debutantes come from. I mean, certainly there's a time and a place for it, and hats, like at the Kentucky Derby and things like that. Whether
Right.
you live in Kentucky or not, and you're celebrating it and you're having a Kentucky Derby party, you got hats on.
Right.
So, yeah, it just depends on the occasion. But for
Mhm.
the most part, I would say just know what the agenda is. If you
Mhm.
do go for like the VIP dinners, I
Mhm.
would dress up a little.
Yeah, that's a little dressier for sure. And that's the VIP dinner is something specific to superstars. If you pay a little extra, the cool thing is you can be at a table. I was at a table with Jim Butcher and
Right.
there's only 8 of you and you have them for it's a captive audience and you're just like, wow, I'm eating dinner with this person. It's really an interesting setup, but there's a lot of conferences, and maybe, who knows, we might be live in Author Nation in November. We'll see.
Maybe now that we know kind of what we're doing, do we? Do we know?
With a live recording, that was, last week's episode just being live was just fun because
It was fun.
people were really excited to be part of it. And yeah, so I think we should try to do that again. But
Yeah, we got to find the right space and section
yes,
to do it.
yes,
We
yeah,
were so very last minute, but it worked out great. But at the same
yeah.
time, yeah, this girl's a little bit of a planner.
Oh, I'm a planner. Well, any other takeaways or tidbits you think for people to know?
The other thing I would say is that try not to be judgmental. Just take everything in. And
Hmm.
as you said, sort it out later.
Hmm.
For me, I don't do it immediate, but I tend to do it over the week when I get back. And I decided to take the day off because I have a day job, the day off today, which we're recording, which is at the start of the week, just to give myself some rest before going
Hmm.
back to work. I highly recommend that.
Yes, if you
Because
can.
people will think you're on vacation, but a conference, it's a lot of work. It drains your body physically a little bit, mental capacity in terms of just all the things. So give yourself some rest before you return to writing, work, whatever it is, because you need a little bit of downtime to recuperate.
That's a great point. That's so important to remember. So, yeah. Well, can we do our table topic?
Yes,
And
table
then
topic.
and we'll close. All right. This episode's table topic question is, what author would you choose to write your memoir?
I cheat. Wonder if they don't write memoirs though.
No, this is just don't go into your you're like, they don't write memoirs. What if you're the only one? You have to get into fire up your imagination.
No, that's really tough. Like some of my favorite fiction authors, but then I'm friends with a lot of fiction authors now. That's crazy when I say that out loud. I'd probably like try to choose one of my friends, like, I don't know, Angela. She's like, no.
Well, I'd probably put a science fiction twist on it if you're okay. I
Like I said,
mean,
they don't write memoir. Or I might choose, Sasha Black. But if I wanted to have some fun and with a Southern twang, it would be J.R. Ward. Yeah, bring it. That would be
Ooh.
hilarious.
Yeah.
J.R. Ward, Black Dagger Brotherhood. I know some people will know. They'll be like, oh, that would be hilarious. And yes, it would be. You?
I'd probably pick like Emily Henry. Someone
Nice.
to just make it, fluff it up and make everything I've been through, sound like a love story. Yeah, I'd probably pick her something. A romance author.
It is a
Yeah.
love story. What are you talking about? Somewhat
It
of a
is.
love story. It is a love story.
There's always, when you meet your true love, I had to kiss some frogs to get there. So, well, it's been great. We had a great time at the conference, and it's kind of interesting to get back to real life, and it's great talking to you today. So thank you for all your points.
And hopefully my voice will be better next time.
It will be. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating whenever you listen or watch the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. And next week, we're going to talk about community building online. We've been talking about a lot of face-to-face stuff, so we're going to concentrate on how do you find the right communities to serve you in your network online. So Until then, keep writing, keep doing, keep laughing, everything. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks for joining today's episode of The Author Next Door. Be sure to like, follow, and tell us your thoughts of this week's episode. Angela and Cassie would love to hear from you.